Hello, my name's Tim Shoebridge. Novation today made a really big and exciting announcement for all owners of Peak and Summit synthesizers. What they've basically given us through new firmware and software is the capability to be able to create, edit and import our own wavetables into those two synths. Now, I've had the good fortune to be able to get my hands on this software ahead of the announcement. It's beta software, but I'd like to walk you through it and show you how the new Wavetable Editor works. So that's what's coming up next. As always, thanks very, very much for watching. So before we look at the software on the PC, which is where we create, edit and manage our wavetables, I just want to show you on the Peak with the latest firmware. If I initialize a patch and on oscillator 1 I go to the wavetables, at the very end of the list of all of the factory wavetables you'll see that there are 10 slots. User 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and these are the 10 slots that we can use and put our own wavetables into. So you've got all the existing factory ones, but 10 for your own purposes. So what I'm going to do is just set this to slot number 1, and then we will create a wavetable, put it into that slot, and then listen to it on the Peak. Okay, so here is the software. It's Novation components, and I'm going to choose Peak, which is my synth, connected via USB. Hopefully this interface is familiar to you if you've used this software before. I'm going to go straight into the new feature, which is Wavetable Editor here on the menu. So now we're in the wavetable sort of like management area. On the left side here, you'll see that there's a whole load of wavetables. Now this is your library. There's ones here provided by Novation, but any ones that you were to create, you can save in this library as well. And you can see there under each one, there's a little link to send it to the Peak. So these aren't stored on the Peak, they are stored on your PC. And Novation have very nicely provided a whole load of new wavetables for you to play around with and listen to and play. There's this noisier collection. Now I'm not going to go into this collection, I'm not going to try out these different wavetables. We're going to jump straight in and create our own. So let's do that. Create wavetable. Okay, so this is the Wavetable Editor. Now, a wavetable on the Peak or on the Summit is made up of 5 separate waveforms that are morphed between. So these are the waveforms here that you can click on across the top. For a brand new wavetable, they're all initialized to a sine wave. Down the bottom here, you'll see that there's a little sort of virtual keyboard. So you can preview each of these waveforms. Now this sound is not coming out the Peak, this sound is coming out of my PC's sound card. So there's a number of different ways that you can edit the waveform here. And here are the tools on the right hand side. First of all, we've got a bunch of templates, so a bunch of different wave shapes. Sine wave, square, pulse, sawtooth, triangle, and a random shape. And you literally just click on one of these shapes and drag and let go. And as you'll see, whatever portion of the screen that you've used, it will fill it with your wave shape. Like that. So we could fill the whole thing with a waveform, or we could fill in little parts of it like this. Very, very easy. And we can switch between these different templates and just drag inside the grid. So whatever we come up with, we can then preview it down the bottom here. So we're just listening to this one waveform here. We can move on to the next one. We can do something different. Let's do a square wave like that, and add a little bit of a sine in there. Like that, and build up your wavetable this way. Very, very easy. And they're a very good way of getting started with a wave shape. We also have some sort of some tools which are sort of like freehand tools up here. We've got a pencil tool, which is completely freehand. You just literally just draw with it like this. And whatever you draw, it will smooth it once you let go, according to this little control down here, smoothing. If I take it down to 0 and I draw, all my wonderful artwork here is left exactly as it is. Whereas if I go to a large amount of smoothing and draw, it really will try and smooth out all my curves much better. So this is nice for drawing something completely from scratch, or for taking an existing waveform and maybe just editing it a bit. Let's just put in some little spikes in this particular waveform like that. So that's the freehand pencil tool. And then we have a line tool, which you can snap to the grid or not. So you'll see behind here there's a grid. It's by default 8 cells by 8 cells, but you can increase and decrease the resolution of that grid. If we snap to the grid, then we can get some precision going on, and you just literally drag line between cells like this. There you go. And then of course you can combine these different tools. So we could just put a little bit of a waveform in there towards the end if we wanted to. We can manually edit stuff with the pencil tool, whatever we want. So rather than listen to this on my PC, let's send it to the Peak and listen to it on the Peak. So you'll see here, by default, it's using user wavetable number 1 slot. So if we send here, that's the slot that we're going to send it to. And that's it. Instantaneously, it's gone. So here we've got my initialized patch. And it's the shape control which is going to morph between those 5 different waveforms. So when the shape control is centered, we'll be playing this center number 3 waveform. And then when I turn the shape control all the way to the left, I'll be playing number 1. And then when I turn it all the way to the right, I'll be playing number 5. And then we've got everywhere in between. So that's our very first user-defined wavetable on the Peak. It's fantastic. You'll see here on the screen of the Peak that actually the name of it has changed from user 1 to being user WT for wavetable, and that's because here in the editor you can set the name. So if I set the name, I call it Tim, and then send it, you'll see here on the screen that name's changed. So that makes it a lot easier when you are flicking through the wavetables that you've got on your synth and recognizing which one you want to use. Right, there's one more way of editing and creating wavetables and waveforms within wavetables that I haven't shown you yet, and that is down the bottom here, just above the keyboard. There is a level and a phase tab here, and this is additive synthesis. Additive synthesis is the theory that you can recreate any complex waveform out of sine waves specified at different levels, at different frequencies and different phases. So if we go to a brand new waveform, just so we go back to sine wave, you'll see here that there is a bar at maximum on the level tab for C, and that level is dictating the level of the sine wave that you're seeing here. I can introduce other sine waves at any of these frequencies. So let's choose one octave up. And as I start to add it, you'll see that it's being added to the original sine wave, and we've now got some harmonics. Let's add another one, another octave up. And as well as increasing their levels and setting their levels, we can set their phase. And their phase is just basically at what point are they starting their cycle. So if I change the phase of this waveform here, you'll see that it's moving left and right. So by getting the phase and the levels right and the frequencies right, you can recreate any waveform you like using additive synthesis like this. And as well as pulling these levels up individually like this, you can just draw within these grids like that. Like that. One more thing I want to show you with this editor, which is really very cool, is this little slider control here called Live Edit. And as you'll have seen, once you make some changes to your wavetable, you then have to go to send to peak, choose the slot, send it, and then you can play it on the peak. It's not a big deal, but it's sort of like some steps that you have to take. But if you turn on this thing called Live Edit, then every time I make changes inside the editor, the wavetable is automatically sent to the peak in real time. So if I just turn this shape amount so that we're definitely going to be listening to the first waveform, and I make some changes to it, they're there instantly. And that is so cool that you can hear instantly the changes that you're making to your wavetables. It's really fantastic, I have to say. Okay, so let's create a wavetable with a little bit more seriousness than what I've been doing so far. Let's go and start off with a brand new wavetable like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase some harmonic content as we go through each of these waveforms and then see what that sounds like on the peak. So I'm going to go into live edit mode so I don't have to keep sending it to it. We'll start off with the first waveform being the sine wave. The second one we'll add some harmonics to, like that. The third one we'll add the same harmonics, add a few more, like that. Fourth one. One thing that I've actually sort of like realized is it would be really nice to be able to sort of take a waveform and copy paste it to one of the other slots. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but I haven't seen a way of doing it. Can I wonder. Hang on a minute. Let's go here, edit, copy, edit, paste, edit, paste. No. I thought it was going to do it for me. I don't think there is a way of doing it. I haven't found one anyway. I'm sure they can add it very easily, but that would be really quite handy. But anyway, let's carry on with what we're doing here. Let's add in some more harmonics and then switch to this fifth slot. Put those in, and one more like that. So let's just preview it with this keyboard. They sound fairly similar. Let's increase that. Let's go a bit wild with this one, shall we? Okay, so we're in live edit mode, so it's been sending everything to the peak, so I can immediately start playing it. So we are right the way around with the shape amount here, so we're playing just the sine wave on the left. There's just endless possibilities with this, just being able to create your own waveforms like this so simply, so easily, and then just immediately have them available on the peak. It's given the peak and the summit a whole extra dimension, I have to say. I'm really, really chuffed with this. I could spend days and days and days doing this. But let's move on and let's have a look at what else you can do with this editor, and not just create your own, but you can actually import wavetables and create them from waveforms, WAV files and MP3s, and I'll show you that next. Right, so we're back to an initialized wavetable with the sine wave in every slot. Now we've got this little button or this little link here called import. And when we choose that, we've got two options. We can either import a whole wavetable in a file, which you could prepare from some other sort of wavetable editor or some other software where you can export wavetables. But what I'm going to show you today is importing a wavetable from an audio file. So the software here will support WAV files and MP3s. So I've got a folder here with a bunch of different WAV files that I've prepared, basically just recording different sounds from some of my keyboards. I'm going to go with this particular one here called O. It's a sort of vocal sample of a choir. And once we've selected the file, we get the ability to audition it, to play it. So this is what it sounds like. Very, very quiet choir sound. It's only 2 seconds long, but that's really quite long. There's an awful lot of waveforms inside a 2 second long sample, and we're only going to be pulling out 5 discrete separate waveforms to create our wavetable. So what you can do is you can select within the sample where you want that extraction to occur. And I can scan through this or scrub through it either with these arrows here or by dragging with the mouse. And when I drag with the mouse, you'll hear it's like granular synthesis. We've gone right down to the sort of like the smallest level possible. So my sample just sounds constant all the way through. It's just an O sound. So I'll just go somewhere in the middle and import wavetable. And that basically will then pull in 5 separate waveforms, continuous waveforms from that starting point. Now if we go to live edit being switched on, we should immediately hear that. Now what I've got here on the peak is a patch that I've set up where I'm using all 3 oscillators, and each oscillator is accessing the wavetable slot number 1. and I have got this sort of the shape amount for each oscillator just slightly different. So I'm picking out different parts of the wavetable, and then I've got the LFOs, the first two LFOs, 1 and 2 here, just modulating the shape amount very, very gently, so that there's, I'm not listening to just one tiny part of the wavetable. I'm sort of like drifting around it. And it's a patch that I've set up that gives me a sort of a nice sort of pad kind of sound, and we're pointing at this particular wavetable, so it sounds like this. It's got a kind of a vocal quality to it, not much of one. It's certainly got an organic quality to it, but it's not going to sound like the original sample. The original sample is a 2-second long sample, and here we've just got like a tiny, tiny grain of that sample. But there are things that we can do to sort of improve the sound. So rather than import the whole wavetable at once, what we can do, if I go and select the file again, is import waveform. So whatever waveform out of these 5 slots that I've got selected, we can just pull out of the file just that one waveform. So what I've, with playing around, what I found is that I can get a little bit closer to the sort of the results that I want by finding, scrubbing through here and finding a point where I think it sounds good to me. So as we're scrubbing through and picking out waveforms, a lot of them can be quite buzzy. But if I look for a points within here where it's a little bit more mellow, maybe there, import that one. So I've just imported that one waveform here, and I can do the same for each of the other 4 slots. Choose the file, find another position I like, and again, there, 4th one, there, and then the last one. There. Let's see what that sounds like. I think it sounds better. It's got more of a vocal quality to it. So once we've got a wavetable that we like, we can save it to our library over here. Let's just give it a name that makes sense. Let's call it choir. And then save. And now it should be in my library here on the left hand side. If I just filter out all the Novation wavetables, there, so it's in my list. I've only got 2. But there we are. So we've saved it, and at any point we like, we can just click send to peak and send it to a slot that we want to put it in. But that's the thing about these 10 user slots. You've got 10, which is nice to have, and you can put anything in there you like, which is really nice to have. But obviously once you start creating patches that reference wavetable slots, then you sort of like have to sort of manage yourself, you know, which wavetables to put in which slots to get whichever patches to work that you want. So it's just an extra dimension of something for you to maintain and think about, is which slots your patches are referencing and what you put in them. Okay, so just one more example. I've got to do this. Let's pull in a string sample. So import audio file. Here I've got a string. Sounds like this. Very low string, cello string, I think. If we just import the whole wavetable, that's what it's chosen, and it sounds like this. We've got live edit switch on, haven't we? Yeah. So I'll go back to a preset which is a pad kind of sound. Sounds lovely. That was easy, wasn't it? So that's it. That's the Wavetable Editor in a nutshell. Really easy to use. You can get really creative with it. I've had so much fun using it and coming up with sounds that I never thought were possible, to be honest. I think it really has added an extra dimension to both the Peak and the Summit synthesizers. And now do bear in mind that the software that I've been showing you here is beta software. The final version may well be a little bit different, but for more information in terms of availability and details, please check out Novation's website. So that's it. Until the next time, thank you very, very much for watching.